Good Friday morning. Welcome to Friday, the fifth day of the week, and welcome to a fifth day of devotions. I had to think about that for a moment. How I wanted to say that. A fifth day of devotions or meditations in Hebrews, coming off of that powerful 11th chapter, and then moving into a ton of information about Israeli history and some great examples. Then we move into the 12th chapter and standing up to the test, moving through the course that's been laid before us. And now, as we're focusing here in a few verses in the 12th chapter, we're going to do a little bit of looking back, some continual looking back, and making a comparison and a contrast. There's the idea of two mountains, and we're going to hear this morning about the first one. So let's jump right in, and let's look at our meditations in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 18, 19, 20, and 21. We've actually taken 18, which is a very large verse, and broken it in half. It'll have two slides this morning, and then 19, 20, and 21. Here he is speaking. This will resonate with his audience. They are Hebrews. They are Israelites. They are people of the Mosaic tradition and Jewish religion. And he says, you have not come to a mountain that can be touched. So it's not physical. Now this is making connection to another mountain that stands in the middle of their history. You've not come to a mountain that can be touched, and that is burning with fire, to darkness, gloom, and storm, to a trumpet blast. So this mountain, before we go any further, is Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia. The Apostle Paul tells us it's in Saudi Arabia, despite some ancient church history which was really proposed by Helena, the mother of the Roman Emperor in 300 AD, who was very intrigued with the land of Israel and the surrounding lands, and made some declarations based upon some shoddy historical work. Whereas we have the Apostle Paul talking about in Saudi Arabia, we have him talking about Mount Sinai. Jabal al-Lawz would be what it would be called in Arabic. Jabal al-Lawz, or Jabal al-Moshe, or Moise. At any rate, they have the Mount of Moses, or the mount where the law was given. To a trumpet blast, or such a voice speaking words that those who heard it begged that no further word be spoken to them. As you look in the book of Exodus, in the first few chapters, first chapter through third chapter basically cover Moses, the people of Israel, Moses being born. Then Moses goes to a somewhat self-imposed exile to the land of Midian. Where at? In Saudi Arabia. And Jethro is his father-in-law. He spends 40 years in the wilderness. Then we have the burning bush experience of Exodus 3. Moses returns to Israel, speaks to the leadership of the people. Returns to Egypt, speaks to the leadership of the people. 10 plagues come to Egypt, revealing the defeat of all of the regional and various gods of Moses, and ultimately Pharaoh himself, who is considered to be a god in human form, and the future ruler of the realm of the dead, according to the Isis-Osiris legend. And this is the way they do things in Egypt. They are led out at the time of Passover. They come to Mount Sinai, and they hear a trumpet blast. They hear a voice speaking words. All of the people of Israel hear. And those that heard it begged that no further word be spoken to them. They said, we can't take this anymore. Moses, you go up and you confer with this God, Yahweh, and then come back and tell us everything he says. And famous last words, we will do it. They just were having a meltdown over hearing it directly themselves. It was overwhelming. And so they designated Moses as their official earpiece. Some people function as eyepieces and eyewitnesses. They also wanted him to be an ear witness and then come back and tell them. They needed distance. They were overwhelmed. It says because they could not bear what was commanded. And here's an example of one of the things that they had to do in order to prepare further for the visit of Yahweh. If even an animal touches the mountain, they were told, keep all of your animals away from the border of the mountain. They marked it off and said, you can't go past this point. If even an animal touches the mountain, it must be stoned to death. What a tough command. They couldn't handle it. They couldn't bear what was commanded. The sight was so terrifying. And we're not talking about fearsome or somewhat intimidating. The word here used is terrifying. The sight was so terrifying that Moses said, I am trembling with fear. What an awesome picture. And it's more, there are those that want to say it was just a natural phenomenon, just a geological phenomenon. No, it was going beyond that. Here is a voice speaking. There are some pretty tough commands just to keep them safe during this time of revelation. What they were was right on the edge of a great, powerful revelation that was intended and necessary so that all of the nation would get an understanding and grasp the idea of just how great God, Yahweh, is. Just how far above every human concept he is. Just how amazing and beyond every Egyptian concept of a God would be. It was above and beyond anything they could ask or think. It was absolutely overwhelming. Overwhelmed their senses. It overwhelmed their emotions. It touched them deeply. And they couldn't take it. They couldn't handle it. And so they deferred to Moses to be the one who would see and speak with God and then come tell them in a format that was less intimidating. Now, there's an example of human wisdom, not God's wisdom. Why was God wanting them to be prepared and then reveal himself to them? So that they all would have a perspective of him that later only Moses would. They did not have the experience. Only Moses did. And the degree of commitment and the degree of seriousness that it elicited in Moses would have been the degree of seriousness it would have elicited in the people of Israel. But they said no. This is not the first time they've said no, or this will not be the first time they say no to the plan of God. And what it's going to do is blunt. It's going to defer. It's going to diminish. It's going to move them away from something that's so powerful. The sight was so terrifying that Moses said, I am trembling with fear. This was going to be a continuous and lasting spiritual and psychological experience for Moses. It was intended to be an experience for all of Israel because God's ambition, God's plan, was for all of the tribes of Israel to be his representatives in the earth. He wanted all of them to have a Moses experience. He wanted every last one of them to experience God in a powerful way so that they could then go and have powerful influence throughout the earth as someone who knows him and has had relationship with him and has experienced the awesomeness of God. It wasn't a phobia or a fear or a paranoia, but a deep and profound aha moment combined with deep respect. So that's what it takes. It takes a profound aha moment melded to and welded to a deep sense of just how great God is beyond the physical scope. And with that experience, Moses was a powerful leader. Can you imagine if all of Israel, all 1 million plus, had themselves submitted to this terrifying sight and experience and had gone through it just as Moses did, where the earth would have been and how the Bible would have read, it would have been entirely different. But they voted no. Now, the good news is we don't have to come to a terrifying mountain, but there is another mountain that we have got to come to. And we're going to look at that tomorrow. So I'm going to leave you with that. May God's grace and peace be with you as he stirs your spirit and works a transformation in your mind, your will, and your emotions. Changes your life. The Lord's good that way. May his grace and peace be upon you. We'll see you tomorrow.